Hello there. Today I'm taking a look at a wine that's a little bit of a favourite of mine. This is a Bordeaux blend from Hawke's Bay in New Zealand's North Island on the east coast. It's a wine called Te Kahu. It's made by Craggy Range. It's the 2019 vintage of that. And yes, this is a blend of Bordeaux style varieties. Now, Craggy Range was only started in 1999. It was started by two men. The investment came from an American investor, Terry Peabody, and most of the drive-in setting up the vineyards and winery came from Steve Smith, a New Zealand viticulturist who was a master of wine and had previously worked for Villa Maria. And they have two wineries. They have the very showy Giants winery where there's quite a good restaurant and there are places where you can stay, and it's a very consumer-facing facility. And then their other more production-based facility, I guess, is that in the Gimblett Gravels, which is where I assume this is made, because this is a single vineyard wine from the Gimblett Gravels region of Hawke's Bay. I think that the reputation of the winery has built quite swiftly because of their top wines that have been very successful. So there's a Merlot Cabernet blend called Sophia, and then there's a Syrah called Les Sols, amongst others. I mean, there are some really good Pinots and Chardonnays and Sauvignon Blanc as well. Also some wines from Martinborough. But the Hawke's Bay is where they centre their operation. The soils of Gimblett Gravels are quite special. It's one area that's classified, and you have to, if you're a member of the Gimblett Gravels Association, you can use the name Gimblett Gravels as long as you follow the rules outlined for how the growing of grapes is to be achieved there. It's an area of beautifully free-draining stony soil. Evidently there was an earthquake 100 or so years ago, and a river sort of took a complete change of course, leaving this riverbed of gravels there, which are ideal free-draining, warm soils that particularly Cabernet Sauvignon is very fond of. This particular wine is a blend of predominantly Merlot, 61% Merlot. It's got 22% of Cabernet Sauvignon in. There's another 9% of Cabernet Franc on top of that, and then the balance is made up of 4% of Malbec and 4% of Petit Verdot. So it's quite a diverse and quite Bordeaux-style blend. The wine ferments in stainless steel tanks, in closed stainless steel tanks. It's entirely destemmed. About 20% of the fruit was hand-picked. I would say the Gimblett Gravels is an area of flat vineyards, so relatively straightforward to machine harvest without too much in the way of quality implications. Possibly it's the smaller batches like the Petit Verdot and the Malbec that have been hand-picked, just because that might be more convenient. I don't know, that's just a guess there. The wine goes into barriques, 20% of which are new. They'll be, I assume, French oak, and ages in there for actually quite a while, considering this is not a wine at a high price point. This ages for 17 months. And I mean, fermentation is inoculated, and they're quite happy to say that the wines are lightly filtered and they're fined with egg whites. So fairly traditional production. 2019 was quite an exceptional warm vintage, with a lovely dry period from Christmas onwards through to harvest. So I'm expecting quite a nice concentrated wine. So let's have a look at this, shall we? In terms of colour, not quite opaque, but there's a nice depth to what is quite a vibrant, dark, deep ruby red colour there. It's 13.5% alcohol, so I'm not seeing a particularly quick formation of tears on the glass as I swirl that. The aromas, for me, this is a wine whose aromas are quite sort of classically along the sort of lines of Bordeaux in style. There's quite a sort of a leafy note with some cedriness, maybe a slight sort of note of forest floor development. there's ripe fruit behind all that, but it's that sort of structure framing it that you can see first. Behind, you've got quite a ripe mulberry sort of note there. So let's have a taste, shall we? It's on the palate, but this really does sort of make me think of Bordeaux in terms of style. There's good mouth-watering acidity. There's a touch of leafiness to the wine. The crispness is making me think of, I guess, initially of cassis, that sort of quite sharp, black curranty note there. But then there's quite a concentration. It's heading towards a licoriceiness, but actually it's more like elderberry, that sort of concentrated, dark, really small berry with lots of depth of flavour there. Behind that fruit, there are touches of cedar. They're not particularly to the forefront. I mean, if you remember rightly, I said 20% new oak. But there's a certain grip. There's a fine tannin there, probably denoting the fact it spent as much time as it has in oak. It's just leaving a little bit of dryness there, but leaving those tannins really quite fine. The lovely freshness is leaving there's sort of a red fruit note, a slight red currant freshness, maybe through to dried cranberry sort of notes on the finish there. It's that sort of quite piquant red fruit, and the flavours have a nice length there. There's a little tiny note of graphite just on there, again probably coming from the oak age note there. I mean, this is still a young wine, and I think you would very happily think that you could leave this in the cellar for 5 years and it would continue to improve, and it would soften and the fruit would become more complex, and you'd probably get more sort of lifted, elegant aromas coming out of it. But this is a lovely, elegant wine with good structure. It's got nice balance. The alcohol's well in balance. It's not overpowering the fruit at all. It's got some good concentration, and actually I think at a pretty reasonable price. So I mean, do check pricing. There'll be a link in the notes below the video. But yeah, I think this is a wine that's well worth seeking out and trying, because I think it offers quite a bit of class and elegance at a nice, affordable price. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you found the video interesting. Do feel free to join in and follow us on YouTube. Do also leave your comments below. We'd love to hear what you think. But most importantly, do try and join us again, won't you? Bye now.